I sing only for those who came to forget, and tonight, in the dark, sits the man I tried to erase from memory. The club is called Ardor because heat lives in the velvet. Light cuts like a blade here, shadows fall in straight, devout lines. The room breathes as one audience. A field of masked faces that prefer beauty to truth until truth arrives dressed as beauty. I stand at the lip of the stage with velvet curtains pooling behind me like midnight made liquid. My mask matches. Deep wine, lacquered edges, a gloss that catches the smallest tremor of light. Beneath it, my mouth shapes the first note, and the collar at my throat warms. Warning, me that someone in the room carries a memory sharp enough to bleed through song. I let the first phrase unfurl. Soft, then sure. The pitch threads through the hush, and you can hear jewelry settle, a cufflink click shut, breath aligning. I sing of the space a leader leaves behind, and the way an empty place can grow teeth. The band follows like shadow, low drum, brushed cymbals, a cello that has learned how to be patient. The song without a pack is not a sad song, not exactly. It is a map of exits. People weep when they hear it, not because it is tragic but because it names the clean relief of walking alone and not dying from it. My voice climbs the rafters and lingers there, vibrating against the metal scaffold so finely that I feel the tremor in my bones. The collar hums back, warmer, warning me again. The past is here, seated, listening. I taste iron. Not fear, focus. The room's scent is a sermon of heat, spilled champagne, old cedar from the balcony rail, the silvery bite of stage fog. Between all of it, the clean line of iron I'd know anywhere. An aura can carry a temperature, a weight. This one is steady, measured, military. Even with 200 bodies breathing in sync, I can hear his lungs. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. Discipline in a suit. I don't look for him. Looking would make the room tilt, and a voice needs a level horizon. Still, I know where he is. The second balcony, center, elbow on the rail as if the city is a parade he's no longer marching in. When I open the vowel on alone, the collar flashes heat into my skin, and my knees almost misread it as permission. I refuse. Sing it clean, I tell myself. Not because he's here, but because you are. A handful of masks tilt, catching light like fish. The front row holds a man who never wears a mask at all. Rayon sits with his hands folded on a cane that doesn't touch the floor. His eyes are sightless and brighter than most. He doesn't watch, he hears. People say he can catch the untruth in a tone the way a tailor feels a bad seam. Tonight his head cocks to the side, a small frown pinching his mouth as if a single thread somewhere has snapped. Between phrases, he says just loud enough for me to hear, and just soft enough for everyone else to doubt. In the hall, someone who should have died with that song. The line hits my spine like a tapped glass. The band holds the measure, unaware. I exhale into the microphone, and the sound inhales the room. My voice slides along the rail of the balcony where the iron aura sits. In my body, a memory stands up, a corridor, a radio cutting out mid-order, the way silence can masquerade as mercy. My humor saves me when my ghosts get generous. I let a smile color the next phrase. It tastes like citrus over steel. By the bridge, the audience forgets to play at indifference. Masks lift a fraction, as if eyes need a better angle on wanting. I don't sing to make them want me. I sing to make them sense themselves. Even the parts they'd pay to misplace. Ardor respects that transaction. The club is a chapel with velvet pews and expensive wine in place of sacraments. Our sermons have rhythm sections. When the bridge drops, the lights slice the stage into clean geometry. Me at the center, the curtains framing like closing hands. I step forward. The collar heats to a sting. I hold the note anyway. Straight through the burn, and feel it thread a line from my mouth to the balcony rail. Something on that line pulls tight. A memory of boots on wet tile. A command, misheard. A breach in a wall you didn't know was holding you together. I break the note, not because I must, but because I choose. The audience doesn't know the difference. The difference is mine. The difference is the only thing I own. The final chorus lands like a vow I haven't made and might. I drop my voice to a confession and raise it to an absolution seconds later, and both ring true. I don't lie when I sing. I only choose which truth to light. On the last long vowel, the room becomes obedient. Even the ice in the glasses has the manners to stop chiming. If you've ever heard 200 hearts lean forward at once, you know the shape of that silence. It's a held breath with velvet edges. I let the note taper. The collar cools by a degree, as if conceding, you did not bow. You did not break. The applause arrives like rain in a city that forgot weather existed. Then, something small and precise arcs through the air from the second balcony. An object describes a perfect parabola down into light. It lands at my feet with the softest kiss of fabric on wood. A black carnation, pinned to its throat. A sliver of metal engraved with an old insignia. Stylized. Teeth. A ring of laurel. A number only a handful of men once answered to. The crowd thinks it's theater. Of course they do. Velvet forgives everything if you stage it well enough. Whispers begin to fold into one another. Who sent that? What does it mean? Is it part of the act? I feel the aura on the balcony hold still, so still it's a choice, not an accident. My chest tightens around a muscle memory of standing at attention. I bend. My glove brushes the carnation, and the stem is cool as a kept promise. I pin it to the lapel of my jacket with a practiced gesture that makes the room sigh like I've removed a dress. Then I lift my head toward the rail I have not looked at once and bow, the barest angle. A salute from a man who never salutes. A hush peels away from the applause. Even the lights seem to tilt. Curious. Seems, I say into the microphone, voice low enough that it only belongs to those who listen. The pass bought a ticket too. A laugh, nervous, delighted, ripples through the room. The house lights push forward by a notch, bright enough to paint faces onto masks. I catch Rayon's mouth curve without his eyes moving. He doesn't need sight to see what's happening. I step back from the edge of the stage. Heat blooms beneath the collar in a single pulse that feels like someone's thumb pressed lightly to my throat. Not coercion. Recognition. I choose not to answer it. Behind the curtain, I can already hear Miro's footsteps. Quick, careful, hands full of silk and worry. I'm not ready to be touched yet by anyone's concern. So I raise the microphone once more and offer the audience a coda, 4 measures of air shaped into something like grace. Applause swells again, then stands, then doesn't know how to sit back down. I let it wash over me because the body has to do something while the mind rethreads itself. Underneath, the club returns to its animal heartbeats, laughter slick with relief, glass against glass, whispered wagers. I give them a final bow and step into the velvet dark, where the heat of the collar finally loosens its teeth. Backstage, the light is cheaper and kinder. The curtain brushes my shoulder like a cat that forgives you for leaving. Someone, Miro, says my name the way he always does, like he's holding a pin too near skin. I don't answer yet. In my palm, the carnation stem prints a green line I will find later and pretend is an accident. I breathe in, 4 counts. Out, 4 counts. It steadies more than my voice. On the far side of the velvet, the room is still learning how to applaud like it means it. Above that room, at the rail, there is a man who didn't stand when everyone else did. There is iron in the air and an old insignia at my chest. There is the faintest impression of boots paused mid-step. I smile into the dark, because you should always be polite when your past arrives well-dressed. Welcome back, I whisper to the collar, to the carnation, to the balcony, to myself. The collar cools, obedient at last. The flower doesn't answer. The audience roars, and somewhere on the second balcony, a disciplined breath finally stutters once before correcting its count. Backstage smells like powder and hot metal, like someone ground the night down to dust and warmed it with lamps. The curtain grazes my shoulder, as if reluctant to stop being a wall between me and the world. Miro gets to me first, already gloved, already frowning at seams I cannot see. Hands, he says, and I offer them like a patient. He peels off my stage gloves with the precision of a surgeon who once loved velvet more than anatomy. His fingers hover over my wrists as if thread could bruise. You didn't have to bow, he murmurs. I didn't, I say. I saluted. That's worse, Miro says, and his mouth softens. You're shaking. I'm singing, I correct. The difference sometimes looks the same. He laughs once, quiet, and sets the gloves aside as if they might go off. He fusses at the lapel, finds the black carnation, hesitates. Do we keep this on? We do, I say. And the stem touches my throat like a dare. The collar by now has cooled, obedient and sulking. I feel its faint pulse the way you feel a thought you will not have yet. Miro steps back to see me whole. He is a beta who could build a cathedral out of cloth. He wears a tape measure like a rosary and pins like prayer. His gaze moves across my face and finds the mask instead of my eyes. Who is he? He asks. An old rhythm in a new suit, I say. Elbows and iron? Don't make poetry about it, Miro says. But his voice is all worship and worry. Make distance. Distance is poetry, I say, and the mask smiles for me. The door opens before he can scold me into caution. Light from the hall cuts into the room in a sharp rectangle, and Ardor fills it. She is not tall, but space straightens when she enters. She has the posture of someone who set down a crown and kept the spine. Silver threads run through her dark hair like stage cues. You were beautiful, she says, which in Ardor's language means profitable, provocative, precise. Her eyes flick to the carnation, and then to my throat. And reckless. I prefer memorable, I say. Ardor ignores that. We have a development, she continues, and the word tastes like iron filings. Saul didn't just buy a seat. He bought a stake. Miro's head jerks up. I feel the room tilt a fraction. Everything in me fighting to stay level for my voice's sake, though I'm not singing now. How large? I ask. Large enough to ask for meetings, Ardor says. Small enough that I can tell him not to own you. Then tell him. I will, she says. And it is not a promise. It is a strategy. But I'm not naive. He'll ask to hear you without the filter. Men like him believe the world is honest if they strip it. Men like him know how to read orders, I say. They also know how to misread them. Ardor's gaze is the weight of a hand between my shoulder blades. Don't turn the stage into a battlefield, she warns. It already was one, I say. I'm just fluent. Be fluent in survival, she says. And then her mouth tips, a tiny, exhausted smile. And in invoices, I grin because she needs me to. So someone bought a pricier ticket, I say lightly. That doesn't mean I will sing requests. Don't joke to me, Ardor says. But the line of her shoulders loosens. Joke to him. She leaves the door open on purpose. Through the slice of hall I catch the club reassembling itself. Tables exhale. Into low conversation. Staff gather empty glasses like catching breath. The air carries back the taste of applause cooling into talk. Rayon appears in the doorway as if he were always in rooms before they have light. He holds the head of his cane as a man might hold a question. May I? He asks. I nod. He knows. He does not need sight to perceive permission. He steps into the warm rectangle and tilts his head toward me, toward my voice, toward the space my body edits. In your voice, he says simply, there isn't a lie, there's pain. But someone in the hall lied harder. Miro's inhale catches. Ardor doesn't move at all. Harder? I repeat. Rayon's sightless eyes don't try for my face. He listens to my breath instead. With practice, he says. The way a soldier lies to a mirror. His mouth bends, not unkind. The way a man keeps time so he won't count the dead. A 4 count in, a 4 count out, upstairs. Thank you, I say. And it is the only currency Rayon accepts. He tilts his cane in something like a bow. Be careful with how you end phrases tonight, he adds. Truth cuts more cleanly when you leave room for it to fall. That's my entire act, I say, and he smiles as if I've tipped him. He leaves the way he came, carried by the geometry of sound. Miro is very busy with buttons that do not require attention. We can lock the green room, he says. We can send a message to the booth, change your second set, invent a crisis. No, I say. Elian. I turn my face so he can see the choice calm there. I give it to him like a mirror. I will not avoid this. I will not chase it either. I will stand where the light is, and let him decide if he can breathe there. I won't run, I say. Not for him. Not from him. Miro swallows, nods, and fixes one last imaginary seam. He steps back, hands falling to his sides. palms open as if he was about to catch me, and decided to trust gravity. Then don't let him touch the mask, he says softly. Even with his eyes. Especially with his eyes, I agree. Ardor has been silent long enough to make meaning of it. He asked to meet, she says finally. I told him after last call. With me, present. Good, I say. I hate small talk when I'm thirsty. You hate small talk always, she replies. A beat. If he presses, I'll press back. I know, I tell her. That's why we sing here. The room settles. The lamps buzz like distant cicadas. Somewhere in the rafters, the metal cools and makes a tiny sound like a penny dropped onto a prayer. I set my fingers against the collar. Not to remove it, but to remind it whose throat it warms. The carnation is a weight and a joke and a flag. I will not pretend my hands are steady, not here, not with them. The tremor is small. It's honest. Second set in 20. Miro says. Plenty of time, I say, and the mask smiles again for both of us. I can feel the iron rhythm above us, waiting. The old order will try to speak. I am not the boy who listened last time. I am the man who answers, on pitch. The upper floor of Ardor is another world, quieter, colder, and made of glass that looks out over the city's pulse. Neon bleeds through the windows, painting the floor in fractured pinks and blues. From here, the applause below sounds like the sea, distant, harmless. Ardor's office smells like tobacco she never lights and ink she always uses. She's already waiting when I enter, perched behind her desk like a queen pretending not to miss her throne. A decanter glows amber beside her, half full, half promise. And across from her, him. Saul doesn't turn at once. He's facing the city, coat open, tie loose, every line of him still military. Shoulders squared, stance balanced. You could drop a weapon into his hand and he'd remember how to aim before it hit his palm. When he finally turns, the light cuts his profile into something clean and deliberate. His eyes meet mine, steady and infuriatingly calm. So, the ghost breathes. Gentlemen, Ardor says, her tone dry enough to set a spark. Since you already know each other's names, or at least voices, I'll spare us the introductions. I don't sit. He doesn't either. Saul's voice, when it comes, is lower than I remember. Roughened by silence, not smoke. You hide behind your voice. I smile without warmth. And you hide behind your share of the club. Ardor's brow lifts. She looks between us as if timing the explosion. Would either of you like to hide behind a drink? Saul ignores her. You always did prefer metaphors to answers. Answers are for people who still believe in orders, I say. I retired from that faith. Something flickers behind his composure, a crack of memory that looks too much like mine. For a heartbeat the air shifts, the temperature of old guilt. I know it well. It tastes like rust and apology. Then maybe you'll forgive a question, he says, measured. Did you mean for the collar to burn when I walked in? I hold his gaze. Maybe it just remembers you. He exhales through his nose. Not quite a laugh. Still singing like it's a weapon. Only when someone points first. Ardor taps her pen against the desk, metal on wood. A sharp metronome. If you two intend to duel, do it on stage. I'd sell tickets. We both ignore her now. He takes a step closer, and I smell the faint trace of rain and iron on his coat. It shouldn't be possible after all these years, that my body would still recognize his proximity, that it would tremble, not in fear, but in muscle memory. I didn't come for revenge, Saul says finally, or redemption. I came because your voice doesn't lie. I need to hear it again, without the armor. There's the nerve. I feel it twist in me. Somewhere between fury and a laugh. You want to hear me? I repeat. The last time you listened, people died. His jaw tightens. For the first time, something cracks through his discipline. Don't rewrite that night as poetry. You don't know what happened after. I know enough, I say. The order came. The silence followed. And what you call command, I call execution. For a moment, he looks older. Tired, not defeated. You think I gave that order? I think you didn't stop it. He says nothing. That's worse than denial. In the quiet, I hear my own pulse trying to set a tempo. Behind Saul, the city lights ripple across the glass, streaks of pink and blue like the veins of a giant heart. For a moment, I remember the sound of static in my ear, the voice breaking apart, mid-command, the sudden rush of heat, metal and screams and the smell of ozone. Then the silence, absolute, unforgivable. I blink it away. Ardor leans back, studying us like a scientist who's already accepted she'll lose her lab in the explosion. You two are either going to kill each other, she says, or save me a fortune in advertising. I meet her gaze and smile. Maybe both. She snorts softly but stays seated. She won't interfere. This, whatever this is, might finally reveal which one of us is lying. Saul steps closer, into the light that falls from the window. Reflection doubles behind him in the glass. One soldier facing another. Then let me make an offer, he says. One night. Just your voice. No filters, no effects, no mask. My laugh comes sharp. You really think I'd give you that? I think, he says quietly. You've been hiding behind your performance for so long you don't remember who's singing. I feel the words like fingers under the collar. Anger blooms fast, bright, but underneath it, damn him. He's right about one thing. I don't remember. Not completely. I fold my arms. Fine, I say. You want to listen? Let's make it interesting. Ardor raises an eyebrow, instantly suspicious. Elian. 3 nights, I say. Eyes on Saul. 3 songs, 3 questions. You can ask one each night. If you survive the answers, you get the truth, or what's left of it. Saul studies me. Expression unreadable. And if I don't? Then you leave, I say simply, and you stop haunting my stage. Ardor opens her mouth to protest, but stops herself. She sees what I'm doing, turning this into a performance, a contract written in rhythm and risk. That's how I fight, where he can't shoot back. Saul finally nods. 3 nights, 3 songs, 3 questions. Agreed, I say. He extends his hand. I don't take it. You'll have your answer in the music, I tell him. That's the only language I still trust. The faintest curve touches his mouth. Then I'll learn the dialect. Ardor exhales, long and low. Congratulations, she says dryly. You've just invented a way to ruin my weekend. I turn to her, still watching him in the reflection. Or sell out the house. Saul moves toward the door, pauses, and looks back at me once. Tomorrow night then. Don't be late, I say. I charge extra for suspense. The door closes behind him. The room feels larger, emptier, but the air still hums where he stood. Ardor pours herself a drink and another for me. You're playing with fire, she says, handing it over. I always do. She tilts her glass, watching the neon bleed through it like liquid glass. You sure you're not still burning for him? I take a sip. The whiskey bites, and I welcome it. If I am, I say. At least I finally know where the smoke's coming from. Ardor laughs softly, bitter and fond. You two deserve each other. I smile. That's what worries me. Smoke lays a thin veil over the stage, the kind that makes light behave, cutting it into obedient columns. Velvet swallows the edges of everything else. The audience hums. Ice, silk, the soft clatter of money trying to sound like taste. I take center and let the hush find me. The band knows the cue. Tonight the rhythm is a march, snare tight as a jaw, kick drum like a boot heel, cello clipped to the length of a held breath. The first note sits low in my chest and climbs like a flag up a pole. My mouth tastes brass. The collar at my throat warms in a slow, incremental persuasion. Don't flinch. Don't falter. I sing as if I'm reading a list of names, carved into stone. The words have angles. They don't beg, they accuse. They walk in step, shoulders squared, vowels clipped on the teeth. Each line lands where it must, tick, tick, tick on the snare, the kind of precision that leaves no room for doubt to hide. I make the melody clean as law and just as pitiless. On the second balcony, a man leans on a rail and tries not to breathe like he remembers how. I don't look. I don't need to. I feel the refusal from here. The way Saul keeps his gaze off the stage, as if looking is a permission he hasn't earned. His rhythm falters anyway. 4 counts in, 5 counts out, then 4 again, as if he tripped inside a memory and caught himself on the edge. Left. Right. Left. I set the tempo for a ghost formation, and the room falls in. The house lights narrow to a corridor. At the end of it, a door I won't open, a radio that won't answer. A night that ended with everything spelled in red. I aim the next phrase like a question fired point blank. Who gave the order? The snare answers with restraint. The bass lets the doubt bloom and die. From the side aisle, Rayon's cane taps twice, not quite in time. He's seated near the soundboard tonight, close enough that Ardor can lean and hear him without the audience noticing their conspiracy of quiet. This alpha is lying, Rayon says. Not unkind. His voice threads under the music like a bobbin. To himself, Ardor doesn't take her eyes off me. Explain. He's parsing language while the music insists on meaning, Rayon murmurs. It hurts to listen when the truth is shaped like your own mouth saying no. Back on the balcony, Saul angles his face toward the exit sign instead of the stage. The red light paints a slash across his cheek in the glass. He stands perfectly still, the way soldiers practice motionlessness until it looks like peace and feels like pain. The march tightens. The cello switches to a low tremolo that vibrates the floorboards. I feel it in my knees like panic dressed as duty. I give the audience an image they can taste. A hallway of tile wet with someone else's mistake. A voice, fraying down a wire, the word hold unraveling into old until it's nothing but static and faith. The collar bites, heat like a thumb pressed to the pulse. I don't pull away. I lean into the burn and let it temper the note until it shines. You can sing a blade sharper by holding it over fire. The crowd doesn't know the metallurgy. They know the glint. By the bridge, the whole room forgets how to blink. The march breaks into halftime. A court-martial slowed for clarity. I lower my voice, make it intimate enough to sound like a confession whispered into a collar mic. Who wrote it down where you could see? Who signed the line where you could read? Who said, stop, and meant bleed? The snare chokes back a roll. The cymbal shivers and refuses to crash. The audience leans into the denial like it's a balcony rail. A flush crawls up Saul's throat, though he hasn't moved. I can feel it from here, the way a room shifts around a man about to remember something he survived by forgetting. He reaches for the rail, misses it, finds it. When I sing Hold Your Fire, his jaw works once, like a man swallowing a word with teeth on it. Rayon's mouth tightens. He can't stand to watch, he tells Ardor. He thinks looking will make it truer. Ardor's knuckles are white around a fountain pen. She doesn't reply. I take the melody up a step. The band climbs with me. For 2 measures, I let beauty smooth the angles, just enough to tempt relief. Then I bear the lyric again, and aim it at the space where a second balcony becomes a mirror. The final chorus is a procession. I don't flinch. I don't forgive. I only name. When the last note should bloom, I cut it short, sudden as a radio dying mid-command. The silence is violent. You can feel 200 hearts slam into it and look for purchase. Then the applause. It arrives like weather breaking, thunder punching its fist into the roof. I bow once, exact, and vanish into velvet. Backstage is heat and lamp buzz, and the small, frantic sounds of people putting themselves back together. I am sweat beneath satin, breath behind a mask, and then I am only a mouth and a question and a collar that remembers more than I do. Miro catches my wrist, feels for tremor the way he'd check a seam. Breathe. I am. Breathe prettier. Invoice me a lesson, I say, and he huffs. Half a laugh, half a curse. Ardor slides in from the wings, eyes like a ledger you don't want to see balanced. He's coming, she says. Of course he is. The march doesn't stop when the band does. Saul appears in the doorway with all his discipline reassembled, but the edges show. His tie is too neat. His hands are too still. His gaze is a fraction. To the left of me and lands finally, deliberately, where it should. I didn't give the order to kill, he says. No greeting. No preface. His voice is quiet enough to be a private exchange, loud enough for Ardor and Miro to witness. Only to stop. It's a sentence designed to split a hair and a life. I look at him until the words have to stand up on their own. Stop, I repeat. That's a generous verb. If you're the one using it. His mouth flinches. The objective was containment, not harm. Containment is a clean word for dirty hands. His chin lifts a degree, then he lowers it as if he remembered humility late, but not too late. Something changed after the call left my mouth. The line went bad. The channel jammed. By the time I realized, "You're late," I say. The end of that sentence is a grave. Miro moves, angry on my behalf, but Ardor stills him with 2 fingers. She's not mercy, she's court. Saul doesn't defend himself with volume. He lets the words bear their own weight. I've replayed it every night since, he says. If I could edit a single syllable, I would. But I didn't say the one you're singing at me. Then, did. He looks at the floor. No, at his memory of it. Someone between my mouth and their hands. A neat way to describe a traitor, or a system designed to make guilt communal until it can't be traced. Something in me, something I welded shut, gives an inch. Not much. A hairline fracture in certainty. Rayon's cane tips once from the hall as he passes, like punctuation. Pain reads clear in him, he says to the air, to anyone. But the word he's trying not to say is jammed. He pauses. And ambushed. I hate that the room feels larger with those words in it, as if space had been trapped beneath a wrong assumption. Saul's eyes find mine and do not look away. Ask me your first question, he says, almost steady. Let me tell you, and if you hear a lie, walk me to the door yourself. I don't have to hear a lie to close a door, I say. But I will hear the truth. He nods once. Then ask, so I do, as per our contract. As per the song already forming around the shape of the answer. Who gave the order? His breath stumbles. 1, half, recover. I did, he says, and the room tightens again, the way a wound tests a stitch. To stop. He doesn't add the rest, not to kill, because he already said it, and repeating it would cheapen it. He also doesn't say the name of the person who warped the command mid-transit, maybe, because he doesn't know it. Maybe because to say a name is to set a target. The collar is warm, but not biting now. It's listening with me. Difference, I say. Soft. So only he gets the cut. Won't sing back for the dead. He receives it without flinching. No, he says. But it might tell the living where to stand. We stare at each other long enough to make the room an accomplice. Behind my mask, the shape of my mouth admits a truth I won't give to sound yet. If he didn't aim the bullet, who loaded the gun? The fracture inside me widens by a whisper. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Just doubt. Bright as a match head. Tomorrow, I say, stepping past him into the corridor, where the smoke thins and the night smells like rain. Second question. He doesn't touch me. He doesn't try. I'll be here, he answers. And it isn't a threat or a plea. It's, God help me, reliable. Ardor watches him go, and then looks at me. Well? I let out a breath I didn't mean to hold. If he's lying, I say. He believes it. And if he isn't, then someone else owes me a song. The workshop is the quietest room in Ardor, the kind of quiet you build with fabric. Bolts of velvet stand like dark columns, mirrors lean against the walls. Swallowing and returning versions of me under different lights. Colored gels sleep in their sleeves, thin as excuses. The air smells of steam, hot thread, and the faint sugar of starch. Miro sits me on a stool under a work lamp that hums like a fly too polite to land. He's already threaded a needle. His hands move with the neat economy of someone who believes rescue is a matter of tension and angle. Don't breathe like a storm, he says, and smooths the lapel I wrinkled just by existing. I thought the aesthetic was tempestuous, I say. That's for the stage. He glances up, meets my eyes for a beat, then looks back at the seam. Back here we prefer survivable. He sews in small, clean bites, a line of silver swallowing distance. The mask is off, set to the side on a velvet head, the way some people keep wedding photos they don't believe in anymore. My collar sits cool at my throat, indifferent, as if last night belonged to another man. It held, he says finally. Meaning the costume, meaning me. Mostly, I say. That's my least favorite, Lee. He snips thread. Holds still. His body leans near. Heat from the iron, from him. There is a tenderness to his impatience, the kind of care that refuses applause. I let him work until the needle's small rhythm begins to sound like a heart that trusts itself. Say it, I tell him. He blinks. Innocent. Say what? Whatever you've been rehearsing for 5 minutes. He sets the needle down. The click is loud. When Miro chooses his words, he arranges them like pattern pieces, precise and with allowance for error. I've been keeping something, he says. In case Ardor ever needed to defend itself. Of course you have, I say gently. You collect insurance like I collect applause. Documentation, he corrects. Contracts, transfers. Names that aren't real attached to money, that is. The consortium that buys voices. He doesn't look at me. They don't always bother buying people. They buy the rights. The word slides under my skin colder than the collar ever does. How far does it go? As far as men like Saul, he says, and then shakes his head at himself. Not like him. Around him. Through him. Through men who wear his shape in shadows. I let my breath out slow. The mirrors make more of me to manage. Miro's voice has gone flat with effort. Flat is what you use when you'd rather shout. Why tell me now? I ask. He busies his hands with a button that doesn't need correcting. Because he'll go looking, he says. And if he goes looking, they'll smell the search. Before he exposes them, they'll expose us. The scissors breathe open and shut. We should leave. Tonight. I can have you in another city before your second set would have begun. I almost laugh. Not at him. Never at him. But at the familiarity of the map he offers. I have followed that map my whole life. Exits as a love language. I'm tired of running, I say. I want them to listen this time. Miro's throat works. He looks like I've asked him not to catch me if I fall. Listening is how predators locate prey. Sometimes, I say, it's how a court hears testimony. This isn't a court. He gestures around the workshop. At fabric and light and mirrors. It's a theater. Then let me try a trial by performance. His laugh is just breath. He presses 2 fingers to the space above my collarbone. Not touching the metal, touching me. If he hurts you, he says, and there is very little beta in the way he says, I'll sew his name into a pocket he can't reach and fill it with pins. I'll invoice you for the custom work, I say softly. He wants to smile. He doesn't. Ardor thinks there's a leak, he says instead, practical again. She's bringing in paperwork. Fire code, liquor permits, occupancy counts. He grimaces. I'm steaming the emergency exit map so it looks like we care. A beat. She says we have 24 hours before the inspection. Who leaked? I ask. Someone who prefers numbers to music, he says. Someone who noticed the second balcony buying shares with steady hands. Saul's face in glass, split by an exit sign. The thought comes uninvited. I don't ask it to leave. Ardor will be ready, I say. She always is, Miro says. I just prefer when we're ready 2 days ago. He takes up the needle again to give his anger a job. If we go, he says, not looking at me, we can build again. I can build you a stage anywhere. There's a wall sturdy enough to hold light. And if we stay? He looks up. The mirror catches our faces and puts them side by side, 2 men rehearsing a decision. Then we become the wall. We let the sentence hang. It is heavier than 7 syllables. The door scuffs. Ardor shoulders in with a stack of paper so obscene it counts as comedy. Smile, she says without looking up. We're legal now. She kicks the door shut and starts sorting forms into piles. Smoke, detectors, sprinklers, licenses, inspections you've never heard of. Someone told them we're due a visit. We were always due a visit, I say. We've been interesting too long. Try being boring, she says. I hear it's restful. She slaps a floor plan down on the table and stabs the exits with a pen. We'll pass. We always pass. But I want you off the floor tonight between sets. Why? Because I like my investments ambulatory, she says dryly. Then she looks up, sees my face, and the dryness softens. Because I'd rather they meet your lawyer before they meet your voice. We don't have a lawyer, Miro says. I do, Ardor answers. I just haven't told him, yet. She eyes the carnation still pinned to my jacket. Keep that on if you like. It's excellent press. Everything's press to you, I say. It's survival, she corrects. Press is just survival with adjectives. The workshop phone blinks. Not rings, blinks, because ringing is drama, and we have enough. Ardor and Miro both look at it like it might explode into bureaucracy. I press the button. The speaker grinds up a voice that doesn't need introductions. Not as an investor, Saul says. As a man, the words drop into the room like a spare part that somehow fits everything. Ardor's mouth curves into a shape between warning and amusement. Miro's jaw tightens in a way that says, I will inventory his bones if necessary. I keep my voice level. Timing? After close, Saul says, with witnesses if you want, without if you don't. Bring your listening, I say. I'm out of orders, he replies. The line clicks quiet. Miro places the needle down with ceremonial care. We can still go, he says. Last attempt. I slide the mask back onto my face. The transformation is simple and entire. We can, I agree. We won't. He ties the final knot and bites the thread. Then let me make you indestructible. Nobody is, I say. Then let me fake it, he says, and tugs the seam flat. He steps back to see me whole again, and for a moment the mirrors agree with him. I look like I might live through this. Ardor gathers her forms, victory and bureaucracy. Places, she says, and the word is both command and prayer. I stand. The costume moves with me like a well-trained animal. Outside, the city drags neon across the glass and names it night. Inside, we practice the ancient arts, stitch, brace, breathe, perform. I'm tired of running, I tell the room, so neither of them has to carry the blame for believing me. Then sing, Ardor says. And listen, Miro adds. I nod, and the collar warms, barely, like a hand that has learned not to grip. We close the club and leave the lights low enough that the room looks like an empty lung. No audience, no ice, no pretense of appetite, just stage, seats, and the faint electric murmur of a building learning how to sleep. Ardor locks the front, then disappears on purpose. Miro invents tasks in the workshop loudly enough that we know where he is, and softly enough that we don't feel kept. It leaves the hall to 3 people, and the air between us. Saul at the end of the center aisle, Rayon near. The soundboard with his cane set across his lap, and me on stage, mask off, collar cool, microphone dead. We don't turn on the sound system. We don't need it. I step forward until the wood under my shoes hums back an answer. I could sing to the room itself and it would carry. Ready? I ask. Saul nods. He stands as if the room were a superior officer. Straight spine, hands behind his back. His tie is gone, the top button of his shirt undone. It makes him look less armored and somehow more dangerous. Rayon tilts his head. Sing like you're talking, he says, and talk like you're singing. So I do. The melody moves under the breath, almost too quiet to qualify as song, a line. Of notes without embroidery, a hand held out rather than a performance. The first phrase lands in the front row and lies there like a confession that refused to kneel. It's not a song about rescue. It's a song about the arithmetic that refuses to add up. I lay out the equation. 1 order, 2 channels, 3 streets between a roof and an exit. 4 men who swore to follow. 1 voice that failed to arrive where it mattered. Saul's attention doesn't waver. He isn't watching me. He's watching something just to the left of the present. His breath begins the 4 count he likes. 4 in, 4 out. On the 4th phrase, it wobbles. Second question, I say between notes. The rhythm still holding us. Whom couldn't you save? He doesn't answer yet. The song keeps moving, soft as a bandage, and I understand why people hate quiet music. It leaves no place to hide. I keep it merciless and kind. Rayon's hand tightens on his cane. If you tell it, he says toward Saul, tell it in verbs. Saul nods once. like receiving orders he actually wants. The comm's jammed, he says, voice low enough to ask the room's permission. We had 2 teams, mine on the perimeter, another on extraction. The order was stop, contain, and wait. Something came through on the wrong channel. Push. We moved. He stops, corrects himself. I moved. I let the melody fold around the word push like gauze around glass. The caller, hearing nothing it needs to police, stays indifferent. Who couldn't you save? I prompt, softer, not for cruelty but for architecture, to hold the shape of the question steady. My second, he says, 6 years with me. He saw the wrong signal and didn't check his mirrors because I didn't bark at him to do it. His mouth hardens, not at me, at grammar. 2 rookies who believed in clear and move more than they believed in the way the street turned. And, he swallows, the boy we were supposed to bring out. An omega. He had a scar on his left hand, just here. He touches the base of his thumb, absent, unseeing. He ran before we could tell him not to. That's on us. On me. I feel something in my chest tilt. A long-kept picture sliding in its frame. The face I kept on the other side of a story blurs. My voice widens. The song opening a window instead of a wound. You didn't say his name, I say. I never knew it, he answers. And the admission is indecent in its honesty. We were told numbers. He wasn't a number. He shakes his head once. He was fast. He almost made it. Rayon exhales, a sound like thread slipping clean through fabric. And the order? I said, stop. Saul's eyes stay on the ghost of the exit sign the balcony holds by day and loses by night. Someone else said clear. And someone else misunderstood clear to mean clean. He pinches the bridge of his nose, not to hide tears, there aren't any, but to pinch out a headache he's lived with a long time. By the time I found which frequency was wrong, the right one was silent. I sing that line back to him, a mirror without distortion. By the time I found which frequency was wrong, the right one was silent. It sits honest in the air and then dissipates, the way truth does when. It isn't a verdict anymore, just a weather report you have to live under. You couldn't save 4, I say. 2 rookies. You're second. The boy. He nods. Once. And my team after, he adds, almost as an afterthought that weighs the most. I kept them. But I couldn't keep them from deciding who to hate, and that kind of loss doesn't show up on any list. The song wraps around the list anyway. I let it name the absences, not as charges, but as facts. When I say boy, it does not mean saint or sinner. It means boy. When I say second, it means man, and a line of jokes Saul doesn't tell anymore, because the person who laughed first isn't here to laugh. The wood of the stage knows this story. It carries it effortlessly. Was that boy me? I ask, because the myth inside me insists on being theatrical to the end. Saul's answer is immediate. No, he says. You. He stops. Recalibrates. Not that night. Not there. I knew your voice from another place later, and I punished what it reminded me of. That's my fault, not yours. It should feel like absolution. It doesn't. It feels like the moment you realize the villain you trained to kill is a shadow cast by a shape you haven't found yet. My anger stumbles forward, then catches itself and learns a new step. I take the song lower, nearer to speech. It starts to sound like me when I'm tired, which is to say honest by accident. I sang against a story I wrote about you, I say. I made a cathedral out of a single wrong word, and lived in it, until the mold felt like home. I made a barracks out of a single right word, and drove men into it, he says. We can trade architecture manuals later. I almost laugh. It comes out as a breath that moves the note along without breaking it. What would you have done, I ask, if I'd been the boy? Carried you, he says simply, and then adds, or failed trying. The room tilts toward relief, not the sentimental kind, the practical kind, where the floor learns to be floor again. I finish the song the way you close a ledger, neatly, with a line drawn under the last entry. No flourish, no curtain, just done. We stand in that clean end. The silence isn't violent this time. It's available. Rayon taps his cane once, the lightest punctuation. Now the lie is dead, he says into the room, to both of us, to neither. What remains is to decide who you are without it. Saul's shoulders drop a degree, like a rank he's been carrying slid off without permission. He looks at me fully, not at the edge of me. Who are you, he asks, without your anger at me? I try on an answer and discard it. Hungry, I say, finally, and louder than I meant to be. Good, Rayon murmurs. Hunger sings better than grief when the work is survival. Saul takes a measured breath. I can tell you names, he says, of the frequencies that were jammed, of the men who signed the wrong forms, of the company that cleans. I don't know which of them warped the order, but I can point at the machine. I don't need a machine, I answer. I need a stage. Stages can be machines, he says. And for the first time tonight, he gives me that small, treacherous smile that suggests we are competent at the same sport. We can build one that makes liars trip. I consider the geometry. Tomorrow, I say. Third question. He nods. I'll be here. We know, Rayon says, not unkind, standing with more grace than his cane admits. Some men are punctual to their own redemption. He turns toward the aisle, and Saul steps aside like a door opening the right way. I let the stage swallow my steps, and the dark hold my face long enough to fold it back into something useful. The collar stays cool, a blessing I don't trust yet. Whom couldn't you save? I ask the empty seats, the rafters, the echo, and what are you going to do for the living? The room doesn't answer. Rooms never do. They hold. I look down at my hands, the ones I have used to gesture at ghosts and sign, for deliveries and remove a mask so slowly, people thought it was a trick. They look ordinary. That's new. Tomorrow, I tell them. We build and we sing. Behind me, the curtains stir on a current no one feels, as if the building exhaled after holding a breath for years. Night makes Ardor taller. The corridors lengthen after close, corners go on pilgrimage, and every mirror learns a second language. The staff has a rule for navigating the maze. Follow the light spill, not the exit signs. Exit signs lie. Lights tell you where someone is thinking. Tonight, the light spills in lines that don't belong to us. I feel it first as a change in temperature. Administrative cold. The kind that comes with clipboards and men who pronounce procedure like a sacrament. Miro meets me in the service hall with a garment bag over his shoulder and a manila folder under his arm. The garment bag is empty. The folder is not. They're early, he says. Which they? I ask. The kind that arrive in threes and call themselves an inspection, Miro says, already walking. I keep pace. Fire code, liquor license, occupancy. I would respect the commitment if the paperwork wasn't pre-aged. We turn past the broken portrait where Ardor keeps its sense of humor. The corridor narrows, then splits. Miro takes the left without looking. They asked for you, he adds. And for Rayon. As artistic assets. Assets don't have names, I say. They brought forms that do, he says grimly, tapping the folder. Transfers, temporary seizures for public safety. Sign here if you enjoy being archived. We reach the junction near the loading bay. A man in a blazer that looks like it once met a tailor tries to look casual near a storage door. He glances up, registers Miro's tape measure, my face, and decides he's in the wrong hallway. He isn't. He just doesn't want to learn the rules. Miro smiles with all his teeth. Can I help you misplace yourself? Inspection, the man says, showing an ID that tries too hard. We'll need to coordinate with the owner, Miro finishes pleasantly. Who is on a call? With your boss's boss's boss. He tips his head toward the office wing. Or you can wait over there and admire our tasteful fire extinguishers. The man hesitates, then decides bureaucracy ranks above bravado. He goes, Stall number 1, Miro says. Your turn. Ardor is already in the office suite, sleeves rolled, phone at her ear. A small army of forms marshaled across her desk like troops. She doesn't look up when we enter. No one moves, she says into the receiver. Not without a signed, stamped, and notarized permission slip from the angel of death. Yes, of course I'll hold. She covers the receiver. Smile, my darlings. We are a safe, law-abiding family business. Family, Miro echoes, dry. Arden's eyes flick to the folder in his arm. He hands it over. She scans, lips thinning. Old signatures, new dates. She taps a line with her pen. And this is my favorite temporary voice custodianship. She looks up at me. They mean you and Rayon, I say. As if summoned, Rayon appears in the doorway with his cane slung like a saber. I'll pass on being curated, he says mildly. My voice is loudest when it's mine. Arden points to a chair. Sit. Don't be brave near doorways. Into the phone. No, not you. Him. She gestures at no one in particular and then at me in specific. We'll need a stall longer than not at this time. Buy me 30 minutes, Miro says. I'll make them forget their names. Arda nods once. Go, she says. Back into the receiver, darling. If you expedite this order, I'll send you tickets to a show that will make you feel 20 again. Yes, legally. Miro slides out with his folder and his smile sharpened. I follow him as far as the hall. The building feels full of footsteps that refuse to introduce themselves. Saul appears from the other direction with two men in uniform who have too much posture to be theater security. He's in a dark field coat instead of a suit, which looks wrong on him and therefore right. Status? He asks. Predators with clipboards, I say. They want a guided tour of my person. Not tonight, Saul says, already fishing out a leather case. The card inside has more emblems than words. He hands it to one of the uniforms, who nods like he's just read a prayer. By authority of ongoing investigation, Saul says, voice turned to granite. This premises is temporarily frozen. No removals, no extractions, no seizures. You can look, you can file, you cannot take. The blazer man from the loading bay returns with two friends and a confidence he borrowed from a group text. You don't have a warrant, he says. We have administrative orders. You have photocopies, Saul replies. And I have a phone with very patient superiors. Would you like to call your orders in and ask whether they want a jurisdictional incident on a Thursday? The men do not want a jurisdictional incident on a Thursday. They want to leave with a trophy labeled compliance. They settle for menace. Rayon's cane ticks somewhere to my right, a compass. I catch his voice, steady. You feel them? He asks me, under the noise. Like drafts, I say. From doors that shouldn't open. Then you know where to sing, he says. Miro appears again, a ghost with paperwork. Found their point of entry, he announces. A logistics company with 4 names and 1 printer. Ardon's clogging the pipe with counter requests. Good, Saul says. We block, we delay. We watch who gets angry enough to show a face. I taste the air. It's turned metallic, like rain threatening an argument. Under it, something else. An edge that isn't procedure. It moves, like thought. Not a person in a hallway. A hand on a switch. I look at Saul. Third question, I say. Low. He meets my eyes. In them, the second balcony and the exit sign, and the night we put down between us. I know, he says. It's time. Not yet on stage, I say. Here. Under their lights. So they have to listen too. The blazer men cluster at the far end of the hall with their radios performing suspicion. One of them glances toward the security camera and casually lifts a hand to scratch his neck. It's nothing. It's everything. You can scratch a neck while pressing a concealed button if you've practiced. Someone's already recording, I murmur. Let them, Saul answers. It puts us on their tape. Ardon strides out, a storm in tailored black. We have 30 minutes, she announces. And a sympathetic voice in a very large office who remembers owing me a favor. No one leaves. No one is taken. Say please, one of the men suggests. Ardon smiles with the patience of a saint who keeps a ledger. Please note, she says. That was the kind version. Rayon turns his head, alert. He's coming, he says. The one who believes he's invisible because he's never met a stage light. The corridor tightens. The hum behind the walls grows teeth. I feel the collar wake. Not hot, not warning. Attentive. Places. Miro breathes. As if we're about to open. Elian I know, I say, stepping into the center seam of the hall where the light spill is cleanest. Let them think this is a hallway. Make it a stage. Saul takes position to my left, not in front of me. That matters. Arden flanks the inspectors like a velvet rope with graduate degrees. Miro drifts toward the breaker box, with the air of a man about to iron a crisis. Rayon sits, cane across his knees, and turns his face toward my breathing. The invisible man moves. I can't see him. I can feel the intention. My voice finds the pitch that threads between cameras and claims. I don't sing loud. I sing true. Somewhere in the building, a door that isn't supposed to exist thinks about opening. The web tightens. We wait. And when the click comes, small, smug, certain, I am already on the note that turns listening into evidence. The green room is dim by design. Half the bulbs in the vanity stay unlit, unless a face begs the truth from them. Tonight they glow in pairs, every other socket dark, so the mirror makes doubles. 2 of me, 2 of the room, 2 futures, both impatient. The corridor outside breathes administrative weather, muffled voices, shoes with opinions, the distant diplomacy of Ardon's spine. Inside, air stands still enough to hear my own pulse recalibrate. Saul closes the door, and the latch answers with a small, legislative click. He doesn't come closer. He doesn't take the chair. He stands just inside the threshold like a soldier who finally learned it's possible to enter a room without owning it. I don't give orders anymore, he says. The words arrive without ceremony, steady as a hand held out with nothing in it. I watch him in the mirror, because the mirror is rude enough to keep a man honest. The second Saul, glass Saul, has softer edges. Reflections are kinder to regret. The first Saul is still all lines, jaw, shoulders, a mouth for commands that he's trying to relearn as questions. Good, I say. My voice holds more quiet than it used to. We don't take them here. His mouth tips, not a smile, an acquiescence. I noticed. A long second, where nothing moves but air. I set my fingers at the clasp of the collar. The metal is cool against skin that remembers how to brace. In the mirror, 2 sets of hands lift toward one throat. This isn't theater, I tell him, for him and for me, and for the ghosts who buy box seats in my head. If you're here for spectacle, you can go applaud paperwork instead. I'm here for you, he says, not your mask. Careful, I say lightly. Some nights I'm better at being the mask. I believe you, he answers, and it isn't praise, it's empathy. I take a breath. 4 in, 4 out, not his count, mine now. The clasp has a memory of its own. It sticks where it always sticks, as if asking one more time whether I'm sure. I am. I ease it, slow, a ritual performed for an audience of 2 and a jury of mirrors. The first hook releases with a sound like a fine thread deciding not to snap. The second loosens, warmer. The third is the one that lives at the pulse. I pause there, palm flat to my throat, feeling the small, stubborn engine that has carried me through rooms I wasn't meant to survive. Say it, I tell him, because there's always a word people wish to spend right before they witness something they've demanded. He understands. I'll stay, he says. If you ask me to leave, I leave. If you ask me to listen, I won't interrupt. If you ask me to answer, I will. You sound like a contract, I say. I'm trying to sound like consent, he says. I unhook the last clasp. It isn't dramatic. There's no ring of metal on tile, no gasp from hidden witnesses. There's a soft, relieved exhale from skin that's learned the shape of a cage too well. I lay the collar on the table, between the 2 halves of light, where it makes a small eclipse of nickel. For a moment, the room waits. The air changes temperature by a degree no instrument would record, but my bones do. The mirror doubles it. 2 rooms warming, 2 men remembering they were not born as symbols. Sing, Rayon once said, like you're telling one person the thing no one else gets to hear. He isn't inside, but I can feel his listening like a seat saved on purpose. I don't aim for volume. I aim for me. The first sound is almost not a note. It's a breath that decided to become one. Then the line takes shape, clean as if cut on glass and warm as a hand at the small of your back. No filter, no shielding harmonics. The magic that our books would never admit to is simple. the voice tells the air. What shape to be, and the air, grateful to be told something honest, complies. It fills the room, not bigger, just truer. The mirror stops making two of me, and makes one that looks startlingly like the man I remember being before I learned to translate myself for sale. It's not a beautiful voice, it's a sincere one, and sincerity embarrasses people until it rearranges them. Saul doesn't move. His face does. The first change is in his eyes, focus narrowing from the idea of me to the fact of me. Then his mouth gives up a line of tension he probably thought was structural. His breath misses one beat and corrects itself, not from discipline but wonder. Now I understand, he says low, as if stepping into a church he doesn't believe in but respects. What I heard then. It wasn't a song. It was you. There is a filament of anger in me that used to spark at sentences like that. Now? Only now? It doesn't catch. The room is too gentle to be set on fire for sport. I let the melody widen around the words, and accept them like a truth that took its time. Outside, footsteps pass, then stillness. A shadow pauses under the door and moves on. I keep the line steady. I do not use it as a weapon, and that is harder than you'd think. When I stop, the silence is not a void. It's a place. We stand in it. Third question, I say. My throat feels new, not naked. Who do you belong to? He doesn't rush. He has unlearned that kind of speed. Not to a unit, he says. Not to an insignia, even if I still carry it in my bones. Not to the company that pays the men who sign orders for other men to misunderstand. He takes one step closer. Not enough to crowd, enough to be counted. I belong to the promises I make now. To the living who will suffer if I pretend I'm only the man I was trained to be. He holds my gaze, unflinching. I don't belong to you. A corner of my mouth remembers humor. Good answer. But I will stand with you, he adds. If you ask, there's the difference I've been singing toward without naming. Not possession, position. And you? He asks. Who do you belong to? In the mirror, the two of me wait for the third, decision, to join them. I could say no one out of habit or the stage out of deflection. Both are true, both lazy. Myself, I say, finally, and feel the room agree. And the work. And the people who choose me without trying to keep me. Something in Saul eases that isn't about winning. It's about being allowed to fail at the right things and fix them anyway. The doorknob turns not at all, but I hear Rayon's cane rest against the frame with the friendly weight of punctuation. His voice threads in from the hall, a whisper that finds the perfect seam between dark and light. Clean, he says, and the word does what it promises, strips whatever residue performance left on the moment and leaves it bright. Saul closes his eyes and opens them. Thank you, he says to a room that has earned it. Don't thank the room, I say. It only reflects. Then thank you, he corrects, and I don't run from it. We don't move for a time measured only by breathing. The collar lies between the lamps like a question we've finally outgrown. My throat feels bare and correct. I touch the skin there. Not to cover, only to memorize. Practicalities, I say, because magic is allergic to logistics and that's why it needs them. They're going to try again. They'll bring cleaner copies, he agrees, and a name with enough gravity to make lesser names behave. A pause. I can get us a judge who owes a favor. Ardor can buy us hours. Miro can turn a breaker into a sermon. You can sing evidence. And you? I ask. I'll listen, he says. And when it's time, I'll speak in a language they still hear. Orders? I tease. Testimony, he says. With rank. We drift closer the way people do when a room has already decided for them. I can smell rain on his coat again. It must be my imagination. The building has no weather. We stop at an honest distance. He reaches up, but not to touch me. He adjusts one of the bulbs and then thinks better of it, leaving the light imperfect on purpose. Do you want it back on? He asks, glancing toward the collar. No, I say. The word lands quietly. It doesn't ask to be believed. It simply is. Not tonight. Good, he says. And the echo in his voice isn't relief. It's respect. We both look at the mirror. In it, only one of each of us stands there now, the doubles reconciled. He looks taller without command. I look smaller without armor. Both seem like improvements. Tomorrow, I say. I'll be here, he answers. Rayon's cane taps once. Amen. I pick up the collar to put it away. It's lighter than it looks, heavier than jewelry. I place it in a drawer, shut it gently, and the sound is ordinary, as if I had filed a paper in the correct folder. The most radical thing about some miracles is how tidy they are. At the door, Saul steps aside so I can pass first. It's a simple movement with a complicated history. I shoulder the room like a new coat. The half-lit bulbs hum approval. In the hall, the building is learning to breathe again. Somewhere, Ardor is finishing a call with a favor. Somewhere, Miro is sewing the night back onto the frame. Somewhere, a man who thought he could walk invisibly under our lights is reconsidering his wardrobe. Behind me, Saul asks, almost formal, Elian. If you need, I'll ask, I say. He nods, accepts that boundary like a gift instead of a gate, and falls into step not beside or behind, but with me. We walk toward the work, which feels suddenly less like a siege and more like a rehearsal for a better shape of living. The mirror in the green room keeps our reflections until the door shuts, then lets them go. They call it an evacuation. They say please with badges, and now with hands. The house is full. Standing room, velvet and breath, glitter and nerves. Lights are half up between sets when the aisle men start to herd. Their voices pitch to reasonable. Reasonable comes with trucks idling at the loading bay. Ardor is already on stage before anyone thinks to clap, a silhouette of poise and lawsuit. Ladies and gentlemen, she says, smile bright enough to sanitize. A brief intermission while we perform a safety review. Please remain seated. That is the safest thing you can do. In the wings, Miro ghosts past me with a coil of cable over one shoulder and a tool belt that shouldn't be that elegant. Upstage grid, he breathes. I can make the house forget where the doors are. He winks without joy. Time me. Saul appears with a pair of officers who have learned how to be furniture until needed. He has the coat he wore last night, and a voice that makes administrative tone sound like granite. No extractions, he tells the men in blazers. This venue is under a temporary freeze. If you take anyone, you'll be taking them from me. A routine evacuation, one of them insists, gesturing toward the exits, where new signs have bloomed like convenient flowers. Saul doesn't look at the signs. The trucks, he says. What's routine about them? No one answers. Routine looks a lot like inventory when you park it with the engines running. Rayon sits at the soundboard, still as prayer, cane laid across the console like a benediction or a threat. He turns his face toward the stage, toward me. Your floor, he says, as if he owned the building's gravity. No mask tonight. No collar. The crowd murmurs when they see my face, a ripple of recognition that feels more like permission than exposure. I step into the center and take the stage the way you take your own. Pulse, deliberately, with a promise to believe what it tells you. Friends, I say into a live microphone that I haven't used as a weapon in weeks. If you're here for safety, you'll get it. But we do it my way. The band, God bless them, reads my posture and finds a key without being asked. They lay down a drone soft as a held breath. Miro kills the aisle blues and brings the balcony lamps up until the second level. Looks like a sky full of listening. He drops the exit signs to half power, they sulk. I sing a note that isn't for beauty. It's for alignment. The room stills around it because that's what honest pitch does to air. It, squares us. The song is simple enough to survive translation by adrenaline. It rises and falls like an open door. The words don't accuse or defend. They name. Came to be seen. You came to be safe. You came to be more than a line item. I carry the phrases over the audience like blankets, not nets. At the edge of the stage, a pair of men in navy jackets try to usher a young dancer toward the side door with the smile of a dentist. Saul moves cleanly into their geometry, not blocking, just being where their momentum would like to go. Not tonight, he says. The officers behind him become wall and weather. Miro shifts the front truss, The downlight turns the aisle into a river everyone instinctively avoids stepping into. The men in navy find their steps confused, like a dream where stairs repeat. They retreat to the promise of their clipboards. I open the song into its heart. The note widens. The air answers. Ardor walks the apron with a wireless mic as if she were interviewing a storm. We have procedures, she tells the room sweetly. We also have rights. Everyone breathe. That's the procedure we're following now. The resonance begins in papers. You can hear it if you know what to listen for. A hum under the drone. Like a photocopier too honest to finish its job. Forms in the inspector's hands curl at the corners as if embarrassed by their own signatures. Stamps bleed ever so slightly. The laminate on a badge lifts like a scab losing its will. It isn't magic, not the way fairy tales sell it. It's pressure. Truth vibrating anything built to ignore it. Someone tries to read a clause over the speakers. The clause arrives out of the house system as gibberish. Syllables skipping like a scratched disc. The crowd laughs because laughter is what bodies do when a room remembers its teeth. I take the melody higher and then refuse to keep it. I give it to them. Hum this, I say, and hum the line again. 200 chests answer. The sound multiplies into something communal and unmanageable. The men in navy cannot evacuate a choir humming its own backbone. Contracts in pockets, those mean little counterfeit indentures the consortium favors, begin to prickle against their owner's thighs, heat not enough to harm, enough to persuade. A man pulls his out in confusion, and the ink smiles and unwrites itself like a bad idea. A woman tips a napkin over hers, and when she lifts it, there's only napkin. Rayon's smile is small and fierce. Evidence, he murmurs to the console. On stage, I don't reach for rage. I reach for freedom. The chorus is a door we walk through together because we say we can. I don't say belong. I say with. I don't say take. I say stand. The verbs do the work. At stage right, 2 inspectors make another try for a violinist who looks like he could fit in a crate. They move in a pincer. Saul breaks the angle like a man who has trained against geometry all his life. He doesn't touch them. He speaks to their radios. Unit status, he says, tone board. Every radio in the room, inexplicably and perfectly, answers with static. The violinist vanishes into Miro's light the way a fish becomes water. The trucks outside rev, annoyed, and cut their engines on Arden's call to a friend whose office outweighs their orders. I catch her profile as she listens, the little private grin of a woman whose Rolodex is better than your faith. She raises one hand to me, hold, and one finger a beat later, now. So I give them the last verse. The one I wrote for nights like this, even when I pretended I hadn't. It says, "You are not the paper they bring. You are not the stamp they use. You are not the way they count you. You are countless." It says it without italics, because italics are for cowards. The resonance reaches the balcony. People stand because standing is simpler than explaining why they're still seated. A hush catches in the chandeliers like silk. Then the hush breaks, laughter and tears, and the sound of 200 people deciding to stay where they are. The men in navy, receiving more recordings and fewer instructions, decide to step back and make a note about hostile crowd dynamics. It's not hostile. It's harmonious. Saul looks over at me once. Our auras, if you believe in that kind of language, I do, pull into phase, his training. My chaos, the straight line and the curve meeting at a point that feels like design. It's not romantic. It's correct. I end the song on a note that doesn't resolve. I hang it there, a question the room can keep. Silence lands and doesn't shatter. Then the applause hits. Title, genuine, the kind that starts at the floor and takes the roof with it. People stand because their bodies insist. Ardor bows like a general after a clean campaign. Miro leans against the fly rail and finally lets his shoulders drop. Rayon taps his cane once. A soft amen. The men with clipboards look at their papers, which are suddenly only paper. They look at the stage, which is suddenly law. They look at Saul, who is already on the phone making their superior's evening unhappier than ours. We stay, I tell the microphone, and the room repeats me, 100 variations of the same vow. The trucks outside go quiet. Inside, the lights learn how to be warm again. The song doesn't end so much as continue without me, in humming, in breath, in the way people hold themselves when they remember the shape of their own names. The club smells new again, fresh paint over old ghosts, polish over memory. Ardor has been reborn, not as a refuge or a secret, but as something cleaner, a stage that doesn't apologize for being one. The curtains are open, the floor waxed to a mirror, and behind glass near the entrance hangs the old mask, mine, frozen mid-expression, a relic that doesn't know it's retired. People still call it the miracle show, what happened that night. No one agrees on what they saw, only that they left changed. Now they come back for something simpler, music that doesn't need to save anyone to matter. Tonight isn't a performance, it's an opening. The house lights are warm, the crowd easy. Rayon sits in his usual seat at the edge of the first row, head tilted, cane resting across his knees. He listens like always, but his smile is lighter, as if he's finally hearing rather than defending what he hears. Miro runs the light grid like a painter, instead of a guard. He's been redesigning everything, angles, gels, moods, turning illumination into architecture. During soundcheck, a new singer, nervous and shining, stops beside him and asks, "You're the one who sews light, right?" Miro laughs, the sound small and proud. "I mend it," he says. "Sewing's for miracles." Elian and Saul stand at the back of the hall, co-owners now, equal in the paperwork and in the mess. Elian handles the licenses, Saul handles the quiet parts of security that never make it to paper. Between them, Ardor hums like a city learning to breathe through its art. I wait in the wings, watching the light crawl across the stage, soft as silk over skin, no mask, no collar, just a microphone that doesn't demand blood. For a moment, the hush before the first note feels like an inhale that belongs to everyone at once. When I walk out, the room greets me the way the sea greets a returning swimmer, familiar, cool, and forgiving. The audience isn't standing yet. They're listening first. Good. I want them seated for this. "Welcome back," I say. And it's not a script. Tonight's song isn't about running or hiding. It's about staying. The band gives me one soft chord. I step into it. The melody is simple. A rise, a breath, a place to land. My voice doesn't defend anything now. It invites. The lyrics don't accuse, they call. "Come in. Sit down. You're safe enough to listen." The words open their own doors. Even the lights seem to relax, fading and returning like a pulse. In the back, I catch Saul's reflection in the glass panel by the bar. He's not watching like an officer anymore. He's watching like someone who's learning the difference between vigilance and awe. Ardon's hand rests loosely on his arm, the partnership practical, unflinching. They built this. We built this. When the last verse dissolves, I let the silence stay. It's earned. Applause starts late but rolls like a tide that knows its cue. Not frantic, grateful. Saul joins me on stage during the bows. He doesn't speak for the crowd, just leans close enough for the microphones to ignore and says, "You sing. I breathe." I look at him, at the people, at the mask in its glass box catching the stage light like a second moon. "Seems like the same thing," I whisper. He smiles. A real one, unpracticed. The audience keeps clapping, 100 heartbeats in rhythm. Rayon stands, taps his cane once on the floor. The sound sharp and clean, like punctuation. The house lights bloom. Miro adds a final cue, gold fading into blue, soft enough to feel like sky. Ardor signals the crew to let the applause live a little longer. I close my eyes and let it wash over me. Not armor, not noise, just presence. For the first time in years, my chest doesn't tighten at the sound. It opens. And for the first time in years, I'm not singing against, I'm singing with.